Be me 21, in college, not really working outside of some campus stuff. Living with my girlfriend of about 2 years in a small off-campus apartment. For the first year and a half, everything was pretty much perfect. We met in a literature class, hit it off talking about books, video games, movies. She was cool, funny, smart, didn't take herself too seriously. We'd spend weekends just hanging out, cooking bad food together, playing co-op games until 3 a.m. It was easy. It felt normal. Then, something started to shift a few months back. It wasn't a big sudden change. It was slow, like water turning up to a boil so gradually you don't notice until you're getting burned. She started spending more and more time on certain parts of the internet. Her social media feeds changed. The language she used started to change with it. Little words and phrases started creeping into our everyday conversations. Things like problematic, unpack that, and emotional labor. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just new slang she picked up. The first time it really felt weird was a movie night. We were watching some sci-fi movie we both loved, one with a complicated plot. There was a twist, and I got excited, pausing the movie. "Oh, wait, I get it now," I said, turning to her. "So the reason he could do that is because his future self already—" Before I could finish, she held up her hand. The look on her face wasn't excited. It was disappointed, annoyed. "Can you please not mansplain the plot to me? I'm capable of understanding it on my own." I just stared. Mansplain. We always did this. We'd pause movies and talk about theories, figure things out together. I tried to explain that I was just thinking out loud, sharing my excitement. The response was that my intent didn't matter as much as the impact. The impact was that I had implicitly suggested she wasn't smart enough to get it herself. The rest of the movie was watched in total silence. I felt like I'd stepped on a landmine I never knew was there. That was the beginning. After that, my normal behaviors started getting put under a microscope. Everything became evidence of some deep, hidden flaw in my character. I offered to carry her heavy backpack after a long day of classes. Apparently, this was a benevolent sexism gesture, reinforcing the idea that women are the weaker sex. I just thought her back was probably sore. I complimented a new dress she bought, saying the color looked great on her. This led to a long conversation about the male gaze and how my compliment was objectifying, reducing her worth to her appearance. I was just trying to be a nice boyfriend. Each time, I'd try to defend my actions as normal, kind gestures. Each time, I was told that I just didn't get it because I was a man and couldn't see the oppressive systems I was participating in. It was exhausting. It felt like I was constantly on trial for crimes I didn't even know existed. The apartment, which used to be our comfortable little space, started to feel like a courtroom. The concept of emotional labor became a big theme. One time, I forgot that we needed to RSVP to a friend's party. It was a simple mistake. I had a huge midterm I was studying for, and it just slipped my mind. This wasn't treated as a simple mistake. It was treated as a symptom of my male privilege. I was informed that she has to carry the entire mental load of our social lives, that she's the one who has to remember all the dates, all the obligations, all the little things, because society has conditioned women to be the keepers of the social calendar. My forgetting was not an individual act of forgetfulness. It was an act of patriarchal negligence. I apologized and set a reminder on my phone, but the lecture went on for an hour. It felt like I wasn't being talked to, but diagnosed. Another time, I had a genuinely awful day. A professor I respected basically tore apart a paper I had spent weeks on, in front of the whole class. I came home feeling completely defeated and just empty. I didn't want to talk about it. I just wanted to shut my brain off for a couple of hours. I mumbled that I had a rough day, and then fired up my PC to play some games with my buddies online. For me, that's how I decompress. I zone out, I joke around with friends, and after a while, I feel better. About an hour in it, she came into the room and stood there with her arms crossed. She asked me to take my headset off. She told me that my behavior was a classic example of toxic masculinity, running away from my feelings, refusing to be vulnerable, using escapism instead of processing my emotions in a healthy way. I tried to tell her that I just process things differently. I think things through on my own, and then I'm fine. Talking about it right away just makes it worse for me. This was not an acceptable answer. It was explained to me that this emotional constipation was a result of patriarchal conditioning that tells men they can't show weakness. By refusing to sit down and do the work of talking through my feelings with her, I was perpetuating a harmful cycle. So, I had to sit there feeling like garbage while my own girlfriend psychoanalyzed my coping mechanisms as a social disease. It didn't make me feel better. It made me feel like a specimen in a jar. The whole thing came to a head last month. I was home, studying for finals. It was a quiet afternoon. She came in from the grocery store, carrying 2 big, heavy-looking bags. She was clearly struggling a bit to get them through the door. Without even thinking, I got up from my desk. "Hey, let me get those for you. They look heavy." It was an instinct. You see someone struggling, you offer to help. That's it. The look she gave me was not one of gratitude. It was pure, distilled fury. She dropped the bags on the floor with a loud thud. A carton of eggs inside audibly cracked. "I can't believe you," she said, her voice shaking a little. I was completely lost. "What? What did I do?" "What did you do?" she repeated, her voice getting louder. "You just saw me, a capable woman, and you immediately assumed I was too weak to carry my own groceries. You didn't even ask. You just moved to take over." I stood there, baffled. I was just trying to be helpful. "No," she cut me off. "You were performing masculinity. You were asserting your strength over my perceived weakness. It's a microaggression, Harry. It's one of 1,000 little ways that men reinforce the idea that women need them, that we're helpless without them." I just sighed. I was too tired to have this fight again. "Look, I'm sorry. I wasn't thinking about any of that. I just saw the bags were heavy and wanted to help you." My exhaustion and lack of engagement seemed to make it worse. Her face crumpled, and she started to cry. Not loud, hysterical crying, but quiet, wounded tears. It was way more effective. "You see?" she said, her voice choked with emotion. "You don't even see it. You don't see how this behavior, day after day, wears me down. It makes me feel like you don't see me as an equal. It hurts me, deeply." She sat down on the couch and buried her face in her hands. I felt this wave of guilt wash over me, which was exactly the point I realize now. I sat down next to her, not knowing what to say. "I don't want to hurt you." She looked up, her eyes red. "I know you don't. I believe that you don't do it on purpose, but the impact is still there. Your programming runs so deep that you're not even aware of it." She took my hand. Her tone shifted from hurt to a kind of gentle, therapeutic concern. "I love you," she said softly, "and I'm not giving up on us. But we can't go on like this. It's not healthy for me. It's not healthy for you either. You need to unlearn these toxic behaviors." I braced myself for a breakup speech, but it wasn't that. It was something else. "I've been doing some research," she continued. "I found a therapist, someone who specializes in couples counseling, who understands these modern dynamics. I made an appointment for us." My stomach dropped. "Therapy? I don't think we need therapy. We just need to communicate better." "This is communicating better," she insisted. "This is getting a neutral third party to help you see your own blind spots, to help you do the work on yourself that you need to do. For us. So we can heal." It wasn't presented as an ultimatum. It was presented as a rescue mission, a life raft she was generously offering to me, the drowning man. If I said no, I wasn't just refusing therapy. I was refusing to do the work. I was refusing to heal. I was refusing to care about her feelings. I was cornered. Every path except yes made me into the villain of the story. I looked at her, crying on the couch because I had offered to carry groceries. I looked at my textbooks for the finals I was already stressed about. I just wanted the drama to end. I wanted peace. "Okay," I said, the word feeling like a stone in my throat. "Fine, I'll go." She immediately stopped crying. A bright, hopeful smile spread across her face. "Oh, good," she said, hugging me tightly. "You won't regret this. This is going to be so good for you, for us." I just sat there, feeling a cold sense of dread. I didn't feel like we were going to be saved. I felt like I was being walked to my own execution. The therapy session was scheduled for a Tuesday afternoon, about a week later. The whole week leading up to it was tense. My girlfriend was acting incredibly sweet and supportive, but in a weird, clinical way. She kept saying things like, "I'm so proud of you for taking this step," and "This is the first day of your healing journey." It felt less like we were a couple, and more like she was my life coach, and I was her failing student. She had a whole folder prepared for the meeting, a literal folder with notes, tabbed sections, and highlighted articles from the internet. I felt like I was being audited. We got to the therapist's office. It wasn't what I expected. I was picturing some trendy, minimalist space with a young therapist who would nod along and use the same buzzwords she did. Instead, the building was old, and the office was classic. Big oak desk, leather chairs that sighed when you sat in them, shelves overflowing with actual physical books. The therapist himself, Dr. Evans, was a guy who looked to be in his late 60s. White hair, glasses, wearing a simple sweater. He had a calm, quiet demeanor. He shook our hands, offered us water, and just sat back in his chair, letting the silence hang for a moment. He finally broke it with a simple, "So, what brings you in today?" My girlfriend took that as her cue. She opened her folder and launched into her presentation. It was even more organized than I thought. She had a list. She started with the mansplaining incident during the movie, framing it as a pattern of me devaluing her intelligence. She moved on to the emotional labor issue, detailing how she had to manage our social calendar and my supposed refusal to participate in the mental load of the relationship. She brought up the night I came home from my bad day at college, describing my desire to play video games as a textbook case of toxic masculinity and an inability to be vulnerable. And of course, the grand finale was the grocery bag incident, the microaggression that proved my ingrained patriarchal mindset. Through it all, she was articulate and passionate. She used all the right terminology. She sounded completely convincing, like a prosecutor making a closing argument. She would occasionally look over at Dr. Evans, clearly expecting nods of agreement and validation. Dr. Evans, however, was a stone wall. He just listened. He didn't nod. He didn't frown. He just made a few notes in a small leather-bound notebook. I just sat there, feeling smaller and smaller with every accusation. It felt like my reality was being rewritten in front of me. When she finally finished, there was a long pause. Dr. Evans put his pen down and looked at me. His expression was completely neutral. "Harry?" he said, his voice even. "I've heard your girlfriend's perspective. I'd like to hear yours." I kind of stammered for a second. I wasn't prepared to speak. I felt like the verdict was already in. I don't know, I started. I guess I didn't see it that way. I explained my side of each incident, just like I had at home. I explained that with the movie. I was just excited and thinking out loud, not calling her dumb. I said I was trying to be more mindful of dates and plans, but sometimes I just get overwhelmed with schoolwork and forget things. It wasn't a malicious act. I told him that playing games after a bad day helps me clear my head, and that I didn't want to burden her with my problems right away. When I got to the grocery bags, I just shrugged. I was just trying to help, I said. That's all there was to it. It was meant to be a nice gesture. I felt kind of pathetic, like all my explanations were weak excuses against her mountain of evidence and theory. Dr. Evans listened to me with the same quiet intensity he had shown her. When I was done, he nodded slowly. Then he turned back to my girlfriend. The questions began. They were simple, direct questions. "Shannon," he started, "let's talk about the movie. When Harry shared his theory about the plot, did he say something like, 'You're probably too slow to get this, so let me explain'?" She blinked. "Well, no, not in those words." "Did he interrupt you while you were speaking? Did he dismiss your ideas?" "No, but the implication was there, the dynamic." "I'm not asking about the dynamic," Dr. Evans said gently but firmly. "I'm asking about what actually happened. Did he insult your intelligence, or did he share an idea with you?" She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "He shared an idea." He moved on. "Regarding the emotional labor, you said you have to manage the social calendar. Have you ever tried not managing it?" She looked confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean, have you ever sat down with Harry and said, 'I feel overwhelmed with planning. For the next month, I need you to be in charge of our social events. I won't remind you.' Have you given him the opportunity to step up, or have you preemptively taken on the role and then resented him for it?" "I shouldn't have to ask," she said, her voice rising slightly. "He should just know. He should want to be an equal partner." "Is it possible," Dr. Evans continued, his tone unchanged, "that he thinks you enjoy planning things, and he's letting you do something you're good at? That his inaction isn't a sign of malice, but perhaps a miscommunication and a faulty assumption?" He didn't let up. He went right to the toxic masculinity point. "And when he came home from a bad day, you wanted him to be vulnerable with you? Why?" "Because healthy partners share their feelings," she said, exasperated. "Is it for his benefit or for yours?" Dr. Evans asked. "Did you feel that talking about it would genuinely make him feel better, or did you need him to perform vulnerability for you to feel secure in the relationship? Is it possible that what you call healthy processing is simply your preferred method, and his is just different?" She was starting to look flushed. This was not going according to plan. Then he got to the grocery bags. "Shannon, let's imagine a different scenario," he said. "Imagine you and Harry are walking down the street and you see an elderly man drop his groceries. What do?" "I'd help him pick them up, of course." "Why?" "Because it's the kind thing to do." "When you help that elderly man, are you making a statement about the systemic frailty of the elderly? Are you reinforcing ageist power structures?" "No, that's ridiculous. I'm just helping someone who needs it." Dr. Evans leaned forward slightly. "Then why is it impossible for you to believe that when Harry offered to help you, he was also just helping someone? Why must his action be viewed through a political lens, while yours is simple kindness?" My girlfriend was completely silent. Her folder lay forgotten in her lap. The confident prosecutor was gone. In her place was a confused, angry young woman who was being systematically dismantled. "You're taking his side," she finally whispered, her voice trembling with rage. "You're just like him. You're an old white man. You're part of the system. You can't possibly understand." Dr. Evans leaned back in his chair and looked at her, not with anger, but with something that looked like professional sadness. "My job isn't to take a side," he said calmly. "My job is to listen to what's being said and reflect it back. And what I'm hearing is this. I hear a young man who, by his own admission, is sometimes forgetful and not always the best at communicating his feelings. But his actions, as he describes them, seem to stem from a place of care." He then turned his gaze fully on her. and I hear a young woman who has learned a very specific, very rigid language to interpret the world, a language that automatically translates benign actions into malicious aggressions. You've stopped seeing your boyfriend Shannon. You see a collection of concepts. You see the patriarchy, toxic masculinity, and male privilege. You've put an ideological filter between yourself and him, and the filter is so dense that you can no longer see the actual person standing on the other side. He let the words hang in the air. You brought him here to be fixed, but from where I'm sitting, he's not the one who is breaking your relationship. That was it, the final blow. She stared at him, her mouth open, completely speechless. Then she looked at me with a look of pure betrayal. Without another word, she stood up, grabbed her purse and her useless folder, and stormed out of the office, slamming the door behind her. I just sat there, stunned into silence. The noise of the slammed door echoed in the quiet room. Dr. Evans looked at me. "Well," he said with a small, wry smile, "I suspect that's the last we'll be seeing of her." He leaned forward, his expression becoming more serious. "Son, a relationship is a partnership, not a re-education camp. Don't ever let someone treat you like a political project that needs to be perfected. You deserve a partner who sees you, not a walking textbook of theories." I nodded, not really able to form words. I just felt clear, like a fog had lifted. I thanked him, paid for the session, and walked out. When I got back to the apartment, half her stuff was already gone. Her clothes were gone from the closet. Her books were gone from the shelves. On the kitchen table was a note. It said, "I can't be with someone who is so resistant to growth. You have so much work to do on yourself, and you refuse to even see it. I hope one day you understand the damage you've caused." I read the note, and I laughed. Not a sad laugh, a real, genuine, relieved laugh. The damage? The only damage was the constant gnawing anxiety of walking on eggshells every single day. And now it was gone. I crumpled up the note, tossed it in the trash, and walked over to my PC. I put on my headset, joined a voice chat with my friends, and loaded up a game. "Hey man, you're on late," one of them said. "Yeah," I replied, leaning back in my chair and cracking a smile. Just had some things to take care of. For the first time in months, the apartment was quiet, and it felt like home again.